basic.
Also sharing the same concern as WHO senior advisor Bruce Aylward, who said the global COVAX vaccine sharing initiative could not do its job, as rich nations are using their vaccines on their young, who are less likely to fall ill.
Look at the situation in Africa, right? 50% increasing week on week now, 5 weeks in a row of cases. Multiple variants of concern there. Less than 2% of the population vaccinated. And as I just said, every single one of our suppliers is unable to supply during this period because others are making demands on those products. Others who are vaccinating very young populations that are not at risk. We got to tackle the problems in the right order.
On 2 new COVID-19 clusters have emerged in Singapore as health officials reported an additional 15 new cases in the community yesterday. The 105 Henderson Crescent cluster has 6 new cases linked to it. All 6 were detected as part of community surveillance testing for residents in the area. The other new cluster is traced to Changi General Hospital. It has 2 new cases, both are porters there. Another case has been added to the cluster involving Indonesian foreign domestic health worker. It now has 7 cases. Meanwhile, the 115 Bukit Merah View Market and Food Center cluster has grown to 87, 2 new cases. Those staying at specific blocks within the Bukit Merah Red Hill area can collect antigen rapid test kits from residents' committee centers this weekend. As part of efforts to disrupt undetected community transmissions, they are strongly encouraged to collect these kits and do self-tests. 3 community cases are unlinked. They are an equipment specialist at Singapore General Hospital, a cleaner employed by 4ways at the National University of Singapore's Prince George's Park residents, and a retiree. There are another 5 imported cases. 4 are Singaporeans and PRs returned from India, Indonesia, and the UK. 35 people have died from complications due to COVID-19. The national tally is at 62,513. And staying in Singapore, several private healthcare providers here have closed registrations for Sinovac COVID-19 vaccinations and are looking for new non-mRNA shots. Here comes amidst continued demand 1 week since inoculations with the China-made vaccine began. Sherlyn Sia tells us more.
This medical center has seen 2,000 sign-ups for Sinovac vaccinations so far, and the inquiries keep coming. Online registration stopped last Friday when it first opened for sign-ups. The center is now focusing on clearing its backlog of patients before accepting new registrations.
The profiles that we've seen is a bit surprising to us because it's not a particular group of people. It's actually pretty wide across different age groups. It's a mixture of Singaporeans and also, I guess, long-term visit pass holders. Some of the reasons would be people who have allergies. They feel strongly that they want to have another vaccine or another alternative vaccine besides the mRNA ones.
This neighborhood GP is vaccinating 70 to 4,000 registrations.
We still have people coming from all over Singapore requesting for the vaccine, to book for the vaccine. However, we have to turn them away as we have closed registration already. As we are facing a huge demand, we are hoping to bring in more non-mRNA vaccines.
This such center is still open for registrations, but the earliest slots are only available in October. The center is now exploring plans to import more vaccines on its own.
Preference is really still to rely on the government stockpile. Also looking at is other vaccine candidates. So we are looking at Sinopharm. So that's something that we are exploring. And really this is based on conversations that we have been having with patients.
In response to CNA queries, the Health Ministry says it has no plans for now to allow more providers to administer its current stock of Sinovac vaccines.
While China has inoculated more than 40% of its population, achieving this goal with days to spare ahead of its original target by this month's end. Some 630 million people in China have received at least 1 shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. Jab rate is at an all-time high with nearly 25 million doses administered every day. This brings the total number of shots administered to over 1.1 billion. Back in March, when China's vaccination drive kicked off, the daily rate was just slightly over 2 million. China's next target is to inoculate 70% of its 1.4 billion population cases have stayed low in recent months. It has an average of about 20 new cases a day in the past week. Some authorities warn against letting the guard down, urging more to step forward and get their shots.
最好的一个办法就是通过预防来建立这个群体免疫，但是建立群体免疫它是一个逐渐的一个过程。如果我们这个接种的越多，接种率越高，其实主要就是降低它这个病毒的一个速率有很大的好处。
Authorities in Taiwan are going to tighten border controls as they work to keep the lid on the highly contagious Delta coronavirus variant. Starting tomorrow, travelers from 5 countries, including the UK and Indonesia, will have to spend 14 days in quarantine at centralized facilities. The other nations on the list are Bangladesh, Israel, and Peru. Taiwan has had 7 Delta infections to date, all reported and detected during quarantine. The island is working to extinguish a cluster of domestic infections, mostly driven by the one's globally dominant Alpha variant. Numbers are steadying, with 76 new cases reported yesterday. Taiwan has seen about 110 cases on average per day in the past week. That is some 40% fewer than the week before. And still ahead on Asia now, Hong Kong media company Next Digital delays the announcement of its annual results as investigations into its now-defunct newspaper Apple Daily. And China's rapidly aging population presents an economic challenge to the country. CNA's Olivia Xiong looks at how Beijing could address that issue in a report in just a minute. Individuals from 3 Asian cities with one thing in common: trying to survive after losing their careers in the pandemic. The hidden toll of COVID-19. Make It Work starts 4th July, Sunday on CNA.
Singapore Minister Lawrence Wong on race and racism in Singapore.
Race is never an easy issue for any society in the world, especially highly diverse ones like ours. It is highly emotive because the question of race is wrapped up with our identities, our cultures, our ways of life.
Catch the speech and dialogue. Sunday on CNN.
Next Digital says its annual results will not be published by the end of the month deadline. This is due to national security investigations linked to its now defunct newspaper Apple Daily. In a filing with the stock exchange, Next Digital said its auditor needs more time to work on the results and assess the financial impact on the company. It added that releasing unaudited reports could lead to confusion about its financial position. No date was given for the results announcement, and a board meeting on Monday has been postponed. Trading of Next Digital shares will remain suspended. It was halted last week after authorities froze the assets of its owner, Jimmy Lai, under a new national security law. That cash crunch caused the company's popular tabloid Apple Daily to cease operations on Thursday. It's also reeling the arrest of several top executives for alleged foreign collusion. Media practitioners in Hong Kong say this is a worrying sign for press freedom in the territory, with some expecting greater self-censorship. Officials have repeatedly said media freedoms are respected but not absolute. Will China get old before it gets rich? That's a debate that has once again come to the fore, and as China's Communist Party looks to mark its 100th anniversary on Thursday. Statistics from its recent population census reveal that besides a falling birth rate, Chinese society is also aging rapidly. This seen especially in China's northeast, an area dubbed the country's Rust Belt region. Olivia Xiong was there and filed this report.
76-year-old Shi Wancai is a regular at this park near his home in Shenyang, the provincial capital of China's northeast Liaoning province. Ever since he retired in 2005, he's made many friends at the park. Fellow seniors say take part in various activities to keep fit and healthy.
目标就是准备自己要百岁长寿，甚至要活到120。
But it's not just about living for a long time. Many in Mr. Shi's generation have only one child and don't want to burden the next generation. For decades, China had implemented a controversial one-child policy before it was relaxed in 2016.
老龄化来了，对不对？都是一个孩子，这个老龄化这个问题怎么解决？现在起码把这个玩意儿提到这个议事日程上来了，所以就说各方面这重视这个养老问题了，这是确实是重视，但是由于各个方方面面的因素，现在想解决恐怕暂时还有些困难，我感觉是这样。养老院现在咱们这个经济条件到这个养老院里恐怕就是不适合。
China's aging problem is also evident in the northeast smaller cities like Fushun, about 60 kilometers from Shenyang, which has seen an outflow of young people.
哎呀，像咱们这个年龄要在这过吧，还挺逍遥的。要是说是年轻人都不行了，他都往外走了。所以现在你看看没，咱们抚顺就属于是老年城了。这你看也能看出来。
Once nicknamed the capital of coal, the city has struggled to deal with a decline in its mining industry, a picture common across the northeast heavy industries. A far cry from the heydays of a region dubbed China's eldest son by the late Communist Party chairman Mao Zedong for being the country's first major industrial base.
Now, what strikes me about being here is just how quiet it is. We've only bumped into a couple of people along the way, a few occasional vehicles passing by, and you can even hear the birds chirping. It's a far cry from what used to be a busy, bustling area in one of northeast China's coal powerhouses. Now all that's left are reminders of its past glory.
But the economic strain on the northeast looks set to grow as China's population ages. Already nationwide, estimates suggest that by 2050, a third of China's population will be over 60. And pension funds, according to reports, could also run out as early as 2035. This also made worse by a falling birth rate.
When we look at the working population, the private labor force, so it's kind of engine Chinese economic growth, and it's engine China's rise as a global superpower. So the working population aged between 15 and 64 will shrink around 10% by 2050. At the same time, retirement age, those who reach the retirement age will double. So it's a kind of double whammy, and the smaller, slimmer labor force is trouble for economic development. So that I think that's the kind of economic rationale behind all the demographic policy, social policy.
Authorities have moved to address this recently by relaxing China's birth policy to allow couples to have up to 3 children. Although observers say this may not move the needle much. Instead, China may have to look at improving productivity or using more technology to make up for the shortfall in labor it may see in the coming years. Olivia Xiong, CNA, Fushun.
As China's Communist Party marks its centenary, we take a close look at the challenges the country may face in the road ahead. More on CNA correspondent tonight at 8:30 Singapore, Hong Kong time. That's it now for this hour. Headlines anytime at cna.asia, plus we're on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter.
To brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
In this episode of Talking Point, I find out how
navigate the midterm break amid heightened restrictions. Meet Family 1, The Cows. Dad Kelvin Cow and Mum Daphne Ling run a social media agency, a production studio, and a cafe, all while caring for 5 kids. Yep, you heard me right. 5 kids. Family 2, Dad Denny Hamid and Mom Ileana Usman, and their 2 kids aged 11 and 7. I arranged for a video call to find out how both families are coping so far.
It's been rough, man. If you can't already tell, okay, I've developed crazy eyes, so I can tell you straight up that 5 kids is too many kids to have at home 24 hours a day.
Danny and Liana, are the kids driving you crazy yet?
Yes, they fight a lot now.
Yeah, they argue a lot and get each other's spaces and want their own space.
Japan Hour. Tonight on CMA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation and SMBC.
Once a mighty industrial base, China's northeast has become its rust belt. As communist China prepares to mark a significant anniversary, can the glory days return for this once booming region? CNA correspondent, tonight at these times.
This July, it's time to make a comeback and face challenges head on. Make it work. Job seekers navigate the challenges of the COVID-19 situation in gaining employment. Climate for change, too. Dive into the world of the circular economy, where waste becomes a new resource. Japan's comeback game. The darling of the gaming world. How is Japan gaining back its glory? This July, on CNA.
It's week 2 of the June school holidays, and I'm tracking families to see how they were coping being cooped up at home with their children amid heightened COVID-19 restrictions in Singapore.
So, it's almost midnight, and our friend is still jumping on the sofa back and forth.
And this is what it pretty much looks like when you have so many kids confined in one area. I have no words.
Many parents are only getting their rare peaceful moments when this happens.
People allow them some screen time, and it's kind of a nice way for them to bond actually.
Today they are playing a video game together, and we don't have to play with them. It's great. Yay!
I can't help but wonder if we should be worried about our young children gaming online. I'm finding out from Wei Jin Lee, a veteran in the tech and gaming industry. Because they're pretty much stuck at home, some kids are spending more time gaming. Should we be worried?
Parents should be concerned if their kids are not gaming. Certain games teach you social skills, certain games teach you social skills, certain games teach you how to work as a team. Right? These are very essential skills that we talk about, but choosing the right game I think is key, and playing in moderation.
So how do I pick the right game?
Okay, let me show you, Diana. It's a game called Among Us. Basically, it's a multiplayer game. It's really suitable for 9 and above. Usually 1 or 2 of them are the imposters, and the rest are the crew members.
So how is that good for the kids?
Well, it's problem solving, right? The focus is on guessing and figuring out the social skills.
Should I be worried that my kids can speak to strangers in a game?
There's always that risk, right? But I think amongst all the games out there, this is one of the safer ones in that sense. The community also doesn't engage in a lot of negative talk. Another game I think is good for older kids is called State Aspire. It's really about mathematics and calculation and knowing your cards so that you can choose the right cards and play the right combo to eventually beat the boss.
Now, I've also heard that kids as young as 4 years old are playing games on their parents' mobile phones. Should kids this young be gaming?
I think children under 6 years old should only be playing educational games. Things that teach you about spelling or about grammar. They shouldn't really be playing any games that are primarily for fun and entertainment. It's too young to get them exposed. Staring at the screen too long is not good.
As a parent, I used to really not like for my kids to game. But after learning about the benefits, I guess it wouldn't hurt to game in moderation. Now that's about 2 hours a day, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. And to ensure that the games you select are age appropriate, all you have to do is to check out the age rating under the game description. It's halfway into the month-long June holidays. The stress of being stuck at home is starting to kick in for some.
One by one. Take one first, one.
But as I soon find out, no one feels it as acutely as Muhammad Hazreen and Ernie Jacinta. They struggled with home-based learning.
Okay, put how many marshmallows? 6. We count. 1.
Because their 12-year-old twins are autistic, making it hard for them to adapt to the change in routine.
Every weekend we go to grandfather's house. Okay, so now that we can't because of the winter pretty thing. So they'll keep repeating, okay, today we go ask our house. Okay, so I think, no, we cannot go ask our house today because it's COVID. So, no, we go ask our house, we go ask our house. So it goes for the whole day. So sometimes this kind of questions gets to us. So we're very, very frustrated. You want to go Hougang house?
So once they are used to a certain structure, it's very difficult to try to change that again.
Yeah, because kids with especially autism, they thrive on routine. So once you break that routine, that's where sometimes problem comes in. The anxiety itself is will be heightened. 10-fold, 5-fold sometimes. That's where the tantrums snap down and causes issues for the caregivers or parents.
Hazreen, has that happened during these holidays?
Yeah, many is under control, but we are very anxious about what will come in the next 2 to 3 years when they are much physically fit.
Kaiman, stand up, come, let's go have dinner.
Which of the phase 2 heightened alert measures are the hardest for you all to cope with?
In school, they have this lesson for technology where they teach the children how to use money and how to apply in daily life. So when we eat out usually during the weekend, sometimes I will make them pay for their food. So when phase 2 kicks in, we can't do all this because usually when we go outside to buy food, just usually both of us, the kids will stay at home. This is like taking one step back, you know?
I hear you. So basically, the children's learning takes a step back this month.
Then
I can't imagine what Ernie and her family must be going through. As for me, I've been feeling really bad that my 3 kids are stuck at home most of the time. So I think I'm compensating by overfeeding them. I'm not the only one feeling this way.
I have my mom's guilt because I used to have the no TV rule, but this holiday is really an exception. I'm actually relying a lot on it.
When I run out of ideas of what to do at home, I just stuff them with lots of food.
As I would soon find out, there's actually a name for this. The pandemic parents' guilt. I find out how it affects our children, and as D-Day comes when restrictions are eased,
Singapore will reopen from Monday as planned after a month of restrictions.
I
go back to our families to see how they were spending the rest of their June holiday.
Breaking news.
Chanting for Prime Minister Jakarta to step down.
We will be seeing sporadic protests that up from time and time again.
Key developments.
37 Asean
Final events. Analysis and perspectives.
We'll really be seeing vaccines soon. Imports, which were expected to grow slightly, contracted 2.1%.
News that matters. And you know, daily. On CMA. Satisfy your sweet tooth on your next trip to Gundam. Try traditional desserts with a modern touch. Enjoy healthy meals that are trending and discover the hottest seasonal menus. So make sure to explore a whole new world filled with delicious brunch dishes. Sunday on CMA.